And of course, we always start off with a little bit of loosening to warm up with. So first on the agenda is we're going to do a little bit of Yang Qi Gong to get our bodies limbered up and working. So once I'm in this position, I'm now lifting my arms up, and at the same time I'm sinking back here, trying to create a two-way stretch. This is great for your back and your ribs and your shoulders and many other parts of the body. So here I'm rotating a little bit, and as I rotate, I'm placing slightly more weight on the side I'm rotating towards, so I'm actually sitting here. This side, this hip, I'm attempting to sink that hip. So when I'm in position, my hip should have a very gradual angle on it. So the next phase of this exercise is that we're going to open the body upwards slightly. So on this movement, there is a slight chest expansion, but by no means do we want to force the chest open or pull the back in too strongly. We try to remain as natural as possible. And that, of course, includes our breath. So while we're doing all of these exercises, for the full hour that we're here, we're going to attempt to sink our breath down into the belly or as low as you can get it, and then make your breath as long and slow and deep as possible. So this posture, this is not a passive posture. I'm not just raising my arms, and although that's good and has some value, what I'm really doing is I'm reaching up into my hand and into my fingers. So I'm creating a stretch where most of my torso is going down, but my arms are going up. I'm dropping my ear to my shoulder, and when I do this, I'm trying to keep my nose pointing straight forward, so it's not dipping down on this particular part of the exercise. My shoulders, I'm loosening. The main stretch is through here, and then down the side of my body, and that's aided by opening your arm and your hand. And now I tuck my chin. If you find you're feeling a little stiff or uncomfortable, you're welcome to move around a little bit, adjusting into a nicer position. The chin goes down to actually touch the chest. When we do this movement, or any time your head comes forward and your chin goes down, what should happen is the chest sinks inwards and the back should expand outwards. ear to shoulder on the other side. And again with the nose raised. So all through this rotation, I'm trying to keep my nose pointing straight forward and only tilt the head down. So again now, stretch being on this side, I loosen and sink the shoulder, open all the way down into my palm, into my fingers. And tuck the chin. Raise your nose and drop your ear. And tuck once again. Roll the head all the way back, far back as you can, and pause right in the center, chest very slightly open, breathing sunk, hips a little bit bent, very comfortable position, still in our palms and in our fingers, head all the way back so we're looking straight up. And going into my fingers again, I'm going to raise my arms, keeping my elbows released downward. So not a huge bend by any means, just enough that I'm not holding my arms tightly. My focus right now is to these two fingers mainly and into my palms. And again, reaching up, but not allowing my body to go up. And indeed, what I'm doing is I'm sinking my chest, sinking my hip a little bit more. Every time my arm goes up, even fractionally higher, I sink more. And coming down to shoulder height, the same idea here, the elbows released to point down, hands and fingers open and very straight. Pause at shoulder height, and then do your best to extend both arms. What I'm doing is just demonstrating one arm. We're going to open and lengthen both arms from inside the shoulder joint. Then keeping our arms extended, bend at the waist, bring your hands all the way down towards your feet, and then scoop your arms together, left on the bottom. Drop your head, open your lower back, release your ribs and your breath. And drop your arms. Okay, coming up, we sit deeply. And use our hips and our back to bring ourselves up. Just below the navel, the hands not touching the body or each other. And align yourself. Breathe deeply and slowly. Hands near the hips. Bring your chi down into the ground. So when we're doing that movement as Qi Gong, we usually do 2 to 3 times. And this one, because we're just doing a warm-up and getting ready to do Tai Chi, only doing it once. But feel free to pause the video if you wish, or turn it off, and repeat the movement as many times as you like. This one movement will really help to improve your health. So next movement, this is to stretch the legs out. The legs are major transporters of blood and qi, and it serves us well to keep them strong and to get rid of the tension and cramping in the legs. So bending and stretching the legs, as we just finished doing, is pretty fantastic. We're going to do another exercise that also stretches one leg at a time and stretches through your back and ribs also. So on this one, I'm going to toe in one foot very slightly, the other foot toes out, and I'm staying at roughly shoulder width. This is not a wide stance at all. So the next thing I do is bend here and stabilize myself on this hip, and then bending more here so my weight is also going here. I come down leading with my fingers and my forehead. Very, very soft and relaxed, but a little bit of a stretch going on. Tuck my chin down. Pause only for a breath or two. And then very gradually come up, maintaining a seated position back here and all of my weight back there as well. So the adjustment to get to the other side of this is very simple. There's no stepping involved. We just adjust our feet very slightly. So exactly the same thing. I bend and sink my weight, no weight going forward. If you do that, that's going to cancel the stretch out almost completely. So we're sitting in a very stable manner on the rear hip and bending forward. Come fully straight and adjust to the other side. Next thing we're going to do is a full bend forward, kind of mimicking what we were doing in the first exercise that we did. Legs should be straight when we do this. If you bend, again, you negate the stretching, but we don't want to lock our knees either. So they're very slightly released, as straight as you can, in a release position. Chin on chest, arms dangling loosely. And main stretch is here and coming from the lower back all the way through the neck. And then the other half of the stretch running down through your legs. The weight should be on the heels. Very loose, softly breathing. And to come up, as always, we bend and sit onto the hips and come up using the hips. Okay, so one more that we're going to do in a very soft manner. Just loosening our legs a little bit. And to the other side, same idea, kicking off on a slight angle. Okay, and one more. With both our hands in fists, this hand is going to go up, palm up. This one is palm down, but both formed into a fist, rotating on our hips. And as loose as possible to do this. And try to turn as far as you can without tightening anything. Okay, and next up is we're going to do some sitting exercises where we form a basic forward stance and then practice moving forward and backward. This is the most common movement in Tai Chi, is to sit on our hips and have our weight very slightly, very subtly moving backwards and forwards. Sometimes we go into a position where the front leg is almost straight, but we never straighten a limb in Tai Chi. We certainly never tighten a limb. So that's up next. To form our most basic stance, the formal method of doing so requires that we stand at shoulder width. Shoulder width is pretty easy to figure out. This is the tip of my shoulder, the other tip. So my hands hanging straight down are definitely at shoulder width. When I look down to see the relationship in distance between my hands and my feet, my hands should either be on the outside edge of my foot or very slightly inside, and that gives me a good reasonable shoulder width. So now we are going to turn one foot out to 45 degrees, and then the other foot we're going to step straight forward. So on this step, we need to take a bit of care. What most people do when they're beginning this is they let that foot drift across. So of course, immediately you've lost shoulder width. So we toe out to 45 degrees and then watch yourself step for the first few times you do this until you get used to it. Make sure that this foot goes straight forward. Then when we sit down, we can loosen our shoulders to sit also onto our hips. So in this position, hopefully you can see both knees are very well bent. When I touch the crease between my waist and my thigh, I can feel that it also is very soft. Actually quite a few people either collapse a leg or have their legs on kind of wonky angles. The rear knee should point out not quite 90 degrees, and the front knee and the front hip should not be misaligned to be very crooked. They should line up straight. And my belly button is going to line up close to my front knee. So as I sit back, the adjustment of my hips, if you keep the hip joint open, that is, will pull my belly button towards where my weight is going. So this happens on the forward movement, and it happens on the rearward movement, that my belly is pulled in the same direction that my weight is traveling. Now, a few common errors that are made is that when people go forward, they turn the opposite direction. And once you get used to looking at a good stance with integrity and alignment, you'll recognize very quickly that this is completely chaotic, unaligned, unrooted movement. Basically, I'm about to fall off my body. However, if I rotate towards my weight, this is the same as rotating towards where I'm stable so that I can maintain integrity. So going back and forth, it's the same idea. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is an essential, but it is a little bit difficult and requires some pondering and quite a bit of practice. So I'm just going to demonstrate very briefly and then leave it in your hands. So once again, not drifting across, but stepping straight forward and then sitting down, both hips bent, belly button aligned with front knee, head straight, tail, my bottom should be sunk and released. If you find yourself in a position like this, I'm sure just by looking at me you can tell this is a very unaligned position, lacking in integrity. So again, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time talking about this except to say that our entire body wants to release and be able to stand on our bones or stand on our skeleton without the use of very much muscle. So standing or putting yourself into a position where you lack alignment, obviously we're not going to be able to release our bodies. We're going to have to tighten to hold our faulty position. So this side, this is my my right leg. And now my waist turns very slightly with my weight. Turns again with my weight. And one more thing I want to draw your attention to is that when I go forward, especially, I don't straighten my rear leg. Now you can see very clearly that I'm pitched forward, I'm off balance, and I'm actually leaning, and my weight has left both hips and is now sitting on my knee, putting my knee in parallel. Also completely lacking in alignment when I do that. So just very gently, this is a great exercise to do when you have a spare moment. Sitting, releasing the hip joint, releasing breath, pulling up the top of the head, pulling up the back of the neck, and then tucking very slightly, tuck your chin, sink your shoulders, sink your hands and arms, drop through the tail, creating a two-way stretch. Part of it is going up here, and the other part is going down here. And we try to maintain that release through the tail. I've lost it. Now I retain complete release of the body. Now I can release my breath, I can relax all my joints, all my muscles. Even though you're going to feel, when you're new to this especially, you're going to feel your thighs especially engaging, and if you're not very strong in the lower body, you may experience shaking legs. This is very common for beginners to experience, but we ask only for minimum strength enough to hold yourself in a basic posture. And that's it. So there is a conditioning phase in Tai Chi, and the best way to get through that is to take a lesson such as this and repeat it as frequently as possible, and then do the same with further lessons. So that's our most basic stance. We have half stances, where most of our weight, most to all, only the weight of the leg goes forward. So right now I'm on my toe. That's one version of this stance. The other version is I'm on my heel with my toe slightly raised. The alignment, when I'm in this position, is again through the back. Now if I stick my chest out, immediately my back draws in, my chest protrudes, and my alignment is completely gone. That means the other attributes I'm looking for, such as center and balance, root, and rotation, are being lost also. So this all takes some getting used to. Don't worry too much if you haven't got it. So starting this time on my heel, and then to my toe. In these half stances, our heels line up with each other. So most of our stances, we're in a shoulder width stance. When we go into a horse stance, it's about shoulder width and a half. It's only in these what we call half stances that our heels actually line up.